Thanks, Sophie. Well remembered to press record. I've definitely done that a few times where I've forgotten. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be with you all this morning, just about this morning, still this afternoon, for Access Sport's very first new Inclusive Club Network event. It's really brilliant hour. We're packed full of lots of information, so we don't spend too much time on me. I used to play hockey for England and Great Britain for 18 years. And got involved with Access Sport in 2011, particularly around their Flyers program in hockey. So helping young people with disabilities and young people from disadvantaged backgrounds get into the sport of hockey, which is my first love. To kind of, I suppose, talk about why I got involved with Access Sport. I mean, it's absolutely connected to my values and who I am. But there's two quotes which I think sum it up absolutely perfectly. From two very wise people. So the first is Nelson Mandela, who said that sport has the power to change the world, which I absolutely believe. But I think that has to be balanced up with a second quote from John Amici, who said that sport in and of itself is neither good or bad. We, the people, make it so. And that is why we're all on this call today, to make sure that sport does have that power to change the world for people, for every single person. So that's who I am. That's why I'm here. I'm going to act as glue to kind of move this machine along. So if we crack on to the next slide, and we'll just have a quick look at who Access Sport are. So lots of you will be familiar with Access Sport and what they do. So they're a national charity. They're helping clubs and communities and coaches kind of bring down those barriers really and make sure that sport is for everybody, really serving that underserved community, those young people where we need to do more to reach them, to as I said, pull down some of those barriers and some of those obstacles. And yeah, welcome to as I said, our very first inclusive network event. So we're really excited to have you all here today. If you want to know more about Access Sport, stay on afterwards, put loads of questions in the chat, reach out to the website. It's absolutely packed full of information. So yeah, let us, without further ado, let us get moving forward and what we're going to cover today on our agenda. As I said, it is packed. So we're going to have lots of brilliant fab information from Tanya Martin, who is from Women in Sport, and she's an absolute guru. I will let her introduce herself later, but she's an absolute guru and a leading kind of light of knowledge around that gap of girls and women and how we interact with sport at various times in our life. We're going to talk to Sophie and Sarah from Access Sport about understanding who are we talking about, who are these participants. Let's get into some real life examples and really start to get under the surface of this topic. We're going to have a brilliant panel. We've got 3 brilliant panelists, so we're going to have a really good panel discussion, again, just to open up the area from lived experience, really get to the heart of this topic, this subject, and these people, which is the most important thing. And then it's over to you. So hopefully I'm going to speed through this really quickly. So we've got plenty of time for the really important stuff from Tanya and from Sophie and from our panelists, and then leave that space for you to ask any questions and make sure that you've got all the information that you need to go and take action and make those steps going forward. So that is where we're going to move forward. So it is without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Tanya Martin, who I am excited to hear from. And I am looking forward to taking lots of notes. I got my pens ready. Take notes, ask questions, get them in the chat. Tanya, it is over to you.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Kate. It's great to be here with you all today. Can we move the slide on just one, if that's okay, Sophie? Fantastic. So as Kate said, I'm Tanya. I'm the head of Insight and Innovation at Women in Sport, and we are a national charity that was founded almost 40 years ago, actually. Next year, we'll be celebrating our 40th birthday, and we were set up essentially to tackle gender inequality in sport. And I lead on all of our insight research to really deeply understand the needs and experiences of girls and women in sport, but also as well as our innovation activities in order to turn that insight into practical solutions to ensure that all girls and women feel that they belong in sport. So today I'm just going to briefly share some of our thinking and insight around why it's so important to make sport more inclusive for girls, but also the key issues that we need to tackle, and then touch briefly on some principles that can help you to do that. So at Women in Sport, we research women and girls' engagement with sport across the lifespan. And I think it's really important to recognise from the outset that girls and women face different expectations and different barriers in their wider lives, as well as in sport, to boys and men. And that these can have a really lasting impact on their engagement throughout the lifespan. We know if we start at the left in the early primary school years, we know that harmful gender stereotyping starts to set in young, and this really limits the expectations that we have of our girls and stifles their opportunities and their confidence to engage with sport. You know, the narrative, sorry, that the girls are hearing from as young as age 5 really is that sport isn't a place where they belong and where they fit in. And then girls then carry this narrative with them into adolescence. And this is in the teenage years in particular are a crucial life stage because this is where long-term attitudes, habits, and behaviors start to form. And we also know that within the years, girls experience a huge amount of physical, psychological, and social change, which can impact their self-belief, and it can start to develop negative attitudes towards sport and exercise, which can then follow them into later stages of life. So particularly for this webinar, I think it's really important that we think about these 2 life stages, but particularly those teenage years, because getting it right then can really help us embed those positive exercise habits and develop that kind of lifelong love of sport and exercise to take them through into adulthood. So if we can move on to the next slide. And so why is it so important to engage girls in more active lives? And really the reason is that this generation of teenage girls are facing some deeply worrying issues that need urgent action. So you can see from some of the stats on the slide, if you can just click one more click, Sophie, in terms of their physical health, 37% of girls are overweight and or obese. Happiness levels for girls are at an all-time low. Only 14% of girls say that they feel very happy compared to 38% of girls back in 2009. So what is happening in girls' wider lives to cause this massive deterioration in happiness? Almost a quarter of teenage girls have a probable mental health disorder, with serious issues such as eating disorders and self-harm sharply on the rise, and particularly out of the back of COVID. And over 1 in 3 girls aged 14 to 16 are unhappy with their body image. So we can see here that there are some really deeply worrying issues that we want to address as a charity and that we feel the sports sector are really well equipped to do. If you could move on, Sophie. Because we know that being physically active, and we all know being in this room, we're all engaged in sport and exercise in some kind of way. We know that being physically active can really help combat these issues that girls are facing, and it can have a really positive impact on their self-esteem, their health, and their well-being. But what we do know from the stats out there and the research is that too many girls are not engaging with sport, and they're missing out on the wealth of benefits that it can offer them in their lives. So we know from the Active Lives data that only 45% of girls are meeting CMO guidelines for physical activity, and that girls from lower socioeconomic and Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities are even more likely to be less active than their white peers. But participation is also only half of the picture that we need to consider. Positive attitudes to sport and exercise are absolutely key to sustaining girls' engagement and enjoyment in the long term. But we know, again, from the research that there is a really wide gender gap in attitudes, with girls having less enjoyment, lower confidence, and perceived capability than boys do. And when we delve into more organized sports, such as team sports, we know that there is also a big gender gap there as well. So only 47% of girls take part in team sports compared to 69% of boys. If you can move on, Sophie, that'd be great. So when we're thinking about trying to tackle some of these inequalities, it's really important to recognize that teenage girls are not a homogenous group when it comes to sport and exercise. They have different needs, they have different motivations, and importantly, really different lived experiences of sport and exercise, which you can see on the spectrum of engagement. So this ranges from those girls who have never engaged with sport or felt sporty from their younger years, to girls who used to love sport and identified with it when they were younger, but have now fallen out of love with it, to those who are really highly engaged and sport really aligns with their kind of identity. And understanding this spectrum is really key, because if we can do that, it helps us to connect with girls in a more meaningful way and create tailored solutions that can cater to their different needs. If you could click on, Sophie. So if we researched this spectrum really deeply over the past couple of years to understand the engagement really across boys and girls in society, and found that only 4 in 10 teenage girls define themselves as sporty compared to 6 in 10 boys. But what's more concerning to us actually as a charity is the fact that 43% of girls, which equates to around 1.3 million girls in the UK, used to consider themselves sporty when they were younger, but now don't in their teenage years. And this is much more than boys, as you can see on the chart. So these were girls who previously engaged in sport, felt really good about it, and have just needlessly fallen out of love with it in their teens. And for us, that's a really significant missed opportunity for the sports sector. We have to work so much harder to prevent those girls from disengaging and find really meaningful ways to kind of engage them. So just wait for the next slide.
Sorry, I've just lost my screen. Bear with me 1 second.
That's okay, no problem. It will be there shortly.
One second, sorry, bear with me 1 second.
No problem at all.
Do you want me to jump in, Sophie?
Yes.
I think we're almost there. To slide 14.
There we go. Are we there? Can you see it now?
Next one. Thank you very much. That's fab. So in our work with girls that we've conducted over the past kind of 4 or 5 years, we know that there's some consistent themes that emerge, which help to kind of summarize the key issues that we've got to tackle when it comes to engaging girls in sport. If you could move the slide on one more for me. So slide 14.
Lizzie, if you're able to just jump in, that would be fab.
I'll keep talking to save us a little bit of time either
No
way.
problem.
So for many girls, what we do know from our research is that their experience of sport and exercise is really narrowly defined, often by their experiences of PE. So 37% of girls only do sport and exercise in school PE, which means they've had really little exposure to the huge variety of sports and activities they actually could be engaging in and enjoying. And what we've also found is that PE then can also be a negative experience for a lot of girls, with only 28% saying that they actually really love it. It also lacks relevance for teenage girls. So only 32% feel that it's an important part of their life. So we need to think how we can work much harder to make sport and exercise more relevant and meaningful to what girls are actually seeking when they reach those important teenage years. And then as girls are maturing and they're starting to juggle and kind of form their identity in their teens, what we do know is that they can develop really low confidence and a really high fear of failure, which can be quite exposing in sport in particular. And only 58% of girls actually feel confident to take part in sport. But in addition to all of those things, if that wasn't enough, girls are also experiencing puberty in their teenage years, and they're coping with a lot of physical and emotional and psychological changes over a number of years. And as I said, being physically active is a really visible and exposing activity, which can make girls feel really self-conscious and vulnerable. We know that 65% don't like being watched by others, and 7 in 10 girls will avoid activity on their period as well. If you just do one more click for me, Sophie. And when we think about all of these different factors and the cumulative impact of these, it's perhaps unsurprising, but nonetheless shocking, that by the age of finishing puberty, 7 in 10 girls will have completely disengaged with sport and exercise. And that is what we are working really hard to try and tackle. So as a sector, we believe that it's our responsibility to reimagine and reframe sport for teenage girls to make sure it gives them what they're seeking in life and that it can support them on their journey to being really self-assured, independent young women that feel good about themselves. So to do that, we are asking for 3 things, really. We need to reframe sport to make sure it's truly exciting and something that really inspires and motivates them. We want to redefine their experience to be bigger, broader, and better than anything they've ever experienced, maybe within school or other settings. And we want to really reinforce the joy and freedom of sport and exercise and the various ways that it can really add value to their life. So to help the sports sector to do this, we have developed 8 principles for success to help organisations think differently about how you can engage girls more effectively in sport. And these principles were designed with and for girls and have been based on a huge amount of theory and good practice that is already out there. And they can help us to minimise the barriers that girls face, but also help us to make sport a much more meaningful and inspiring prospect for girls to engage with. And you can use these principles to interrogate and strengthen what you're currently already offering for girls, as well as your communications, but also as a framework for developing any new ideas and solutions through that really important teenage girls lens. And I understand Access Sport will share some resources with you after to point you in the direction of these principles and what you can do and how you can use them. So just to finish off, just some final thoughts to leave you with to think about in terms of what we can do as a collective for girls and what we would like to see moving forward. So we want the sport sector to really expand the relevance of sport for all girls, but also by considering that spectrum of engagement that exists and using that to really develop targeted initiatives that can add real value and relevance to girls' lives. We also need to make our sports opportunities really, really hard to exist. To resist, sorry. So girls need a huge amount of support to navigate the barriers, but they also deserve a much more inspiring opportunities to take part, which can compete with all of the other interesting and exciting things that are going on in their wider lives. We want sport to be something that girls fear missing out on, rather than them sidelining sport for fear of missing out on other things in their life. We want the sector to use the 8 principles for success, as I said, to interrogate and develop existing and new initiatives. And it's really crucial that girls' voices and needs stay central to any solutions that we kind of come up with. And finally, we really think the sector needs to collaborate more to build kind of long-term sustainable solutions, actually, that can really change the landscape for girls. There are fantastic pockets of great work being done out there in the sports sector that we need to champion. But we do need to work much more closely together, both within our own sport and exercise offers, but also with other sports and also other sectors who are doing really well in engaging girls to create that really impactful change. And I think if we can all work together to do that, we have a real opportunity to reframe sport for girls and make it much more relevant, much more meaningful to their lives, and help girls to build those really strong foundations that they need to become the healthy, happy, and active women that we want in the future. So that's the end of my talk. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll stop there.
Amazing, Tanya. That was absolutely phenomenal. So it's now going to pass over to Sarah from Access Sport, who's going to bring that to life with some examples, really thinking about the intersectionality. As Tanya said, girls and women, we're not a homogenous group, we're all different. So over to Sarah to now bring that to life.
Hi, everybody. First of all, can you all hear me okay? Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So just building on kind of what Tanya touched on there, and thank you, Tanya. There was so much useful information. I'm going to struggle to follow that because I felt like that was really, really engaging. We're just going to bring in 3 participants that you or other coaches may have worked with, and I'd really like it if you can kind of input here. So if you have any thoughts throughout this little section, any questions that pop up, please pop them in the chat and we'll kind of discuss them as a group. So it's important to, like Tanya said, that we don't want to think of girls and women as one group, and actually lots of girls and women will sit at that intersection of different barriers. So we're going to look at Anna to start with. So Anna is a young girl who is in SEN school, so she is primary school age, so we know that she's going to struggle to engage with sports, maybe in PE possibly. But Anna's also has, oh, 1 second. Is everyone saying I'm quiet? 1 minute. I'm just going to take my headphones out and let's see if that makes it any better. Is that any better? Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So Anna, young girl of primary school age, is going to have some of those barriers that Tanya suggested before. But Anna's also neurodivergent, so she's going to experience additional barriers. So she has autism, global development delay. She enjoys movement in school, but has not accessed any sports sessions outside of school. Then we have Jan. So Jan's 12 years old. She attends a mainstream school. Jan is Muslim and chooses to wear a hijab. She also celebrates Ramadan each year as part of her faith. She does not know anybody in her community that plays sport. She doesn't know anyone who engages girls who are also Muslim. So we know that both of these 2 young people, not only are they going to experience the barriers associated with being young girls, they're also going to have additional barriers attached to other elements of their identity that as coaches and clubs, we really need to think outside the box of how can we help them overcome all of the many barriers that they might be facing. Then, of course, we have Beth, and we're going to focus on Beth a little bit more because she's in that teenage bracket that actually we know the biggest drop-off occurs. I definitely sat in this bracket when I was a teenager, in that I didn't do any sport. I didn't really say I was sporty at all, and therefore I didn't take part in anything. So we know Beth's 16. She took part in dance throughout school, but now that she's started college, she's not going to continue to do that because it's not one of her options. She says she's not sporty and she doesn't feel like she's good at any of those sports. So here I'm just going to give an opportunity for people to kind of feedback. Is there anybody in your clubs that you might have somebody who identifies like this? Any young people that maybe are similar? Anybody that you've worked with before? Or Tanya, equally, if you have any kind of additions that you can add here towards any of these young people, that would be great. Okay, let's move on. Next one. So now that we know our participants are very different, they have lots of different barriers that they might experience, how are we going to overcome those? So when we're talking about Anna, it's estimated that 1 in 7 people in the UK are neurodivergent, with currently a ratio of 2 to 1. However, we know lots of young people with neurodivergence slip through the net, particularly those girls and women. Generally, girls are better at masking those kind of traits associated with autism or ADHD. That's because the criteria that's created for diagnosing that is actually based on studies done with boys. So we know that lots of girls are slipping through the net and therefore not getting the support that they need. So some considerations to engage girls that may be neurodivergent in your sessions. The biggest one is taking that time to understand each participant and using additional resources to support their engagement, their communication, just being adaptable as a coach. Our next webinar in this series is about engaging disabled participants, and then we have another one about neurodivergency in particular, so please engage with those as well. Next we have Jan. So in the UK, we know that Muslim girls and women are more likely to be inactive than other women, and only 50.7% of Muslim women and girls are active each week. There's a massive group of young women that are missing out on sport and physical activity. Considerations here, one of the biggest being representation. So making sure that that demographic is represented in everything that we do, all the materials that we produce, and really making it feel like a welcoming environment. Making adjustments for things like modest clothing choice, assuring privacy, not just in the sessions, but around the sessions as well. Considering things like faith-based rituals and holidays that we need to incorporate into timetables and things. And also, again, taking that time to understand their intersectionality of different barriers. And then finally, Beth, and again, this fits in very nicely with the theme that kind of Tanya was discussing before. So we've got 61% of girls that feel judged when doing sport, and only 50% lack self-belief. We know that girls are more likely to stop feeling sporty after primary school than boys, so I'm sure within our groups we will all have some young people that identify in this demographic. So some considerations: promoting choice and independence, taking the pressure off participation, taking time to understand that those people, making it really relevant for them so that their experience is something they can really engage in, and championing other benefits, not just the health related benefits that we all know, but why do we want them to engage? Why is it beneficial for that group of people? Tanya, do you have anything to add here about engaging these different participants?
Thanks, Sarah. I think particularly for the last case in there, in terms of,
I don't know if it's just
me.
It might just be me, to be honest, because I've turned my headphones off. But
can everybody else hear me? Great, good stuff. Yeah, I think in terms of the case study of Beth in particular, like you said, that really speaks to our 8 principles for success and what we're trying to get the sports sector to, in terms of understanding the different ways that you can engage girls. Choice and independence, and giving girls that really important voice is really important. And taking the time to consult with your girls and understanding what they want from sessions and what they want from the activity that you're offering is really, really important. And teenage girls are an incredibly creative bunch of individuals. They can come up with ideas and solutions and things that you may never have thought of. So they are a really fantastic bunch to consult with and speak to be able to shape the offer in a way that works for them and for other girls as well. And I think in terms of championing the benefits, I think just to pick up on your point there, Sarah, what we've actually found is that if you champion the health benefits in particular too much, what it then does do is girls internalize that and actually start to feel guilty for not doing enough for their health. So actually the wider, bigger, broader benefits need to be championed in terms of things like teamwork, communication, leadership skills, development opportunities that they can get through sport, all of the different wealth of things. And sometimes it's just about a stress release, isn't it? Just letting off steam from school and the other wider pressures that are going on in your life, and how sport and exercise can really give you that sense of joy and freedom that other aspects of your life may not give you. So just wanted to build on those points really, but I think everything that's been said here is fantastic, and particularly with girls from Muslim communities as well. We also need to think about single sex provision as well. So making sure that, as you said, we account for things like modest clothing, but also ensuring that we are providing sufficient provision that enables them to get active together in a single sex space is also really, really important too.
Thanks, Tanya. Can you all hear me again? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to hand back over to Kate now. If you do have any questions or thoughts about any of those kind of specific groups of participants, please pop it in the chat and we'll kind of discuss them towards the end when we've got some time.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. So it's now my absolute pleasure to start introducing the panel, because it can be quite nerve-wracking to know where to begin on this journey, and so it'll be great to really hear from people on the ground doing it. So Tanya, we've already met, and then I'm going to in a moment just ask Sean Reid from Stretford Victoria FC and Lindsay Rosia Darson to introduce themselves. And I'd just love to name the club that you're involved with, the program that you're involved with, and just a couple of sentences and just bringing that to life, please. Let's start with
yeah, so I'm Sean Reid from Stretford Vics. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, so Sean Reid from Stretford Vics, a grassroots football club in Manchester, and with our sort of girls provision only started up around 13 months ago, and it's been a real case of some of the points that we spoke about there, of making sure we offer a broad range of provision in terms of whether it's for participation and fun, and offering that competitive side, and leaving those options open across all age groups. Again, I know a lot of people here are sort of early stages, but we're relatively early stages. I just think we've had a lot of success in a short period of time that hopefully will help some other people as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. And Lindsay, are you on?
Hello.
Hello. There you are. Hello.
Sorry, I was late coming on. I was having some technical difficulties. So I'm Lindsay, and I run Girls on the Spectrum group in Bexley. We're a social and activity group for autistic girls specifically. We're relatively new, we've been going for just over 2 years now. We were set up because we all had autistic girls ourselves, and we found that there was they slipped into the gap. So mainstream couldn't quite accommodate them as much as they needed to. And the specialist groups, maybe they was for more higher need than our girls were. So we come together and started the group ourselves, but it's grew really quickly. We support over 450 families on Facebook, and it's just going really well. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. I'm very excited about this panel. So the first question to get us rolling then, so you kind of alluded to it, Sean, most of the people on here will probably be at the start of their journey. So maybe, but Lindsay and Sean particularly, like what did it look like? What did it feel like? What were some of those little challenges that you faced? What tools did you use? Kind of tech tools, people tools, to just make those first steps of getting it started? Don't mind, Lindsay or Sean can jump in first.
Yeah, I think it was, for us having no girls provision when I sort of took over his chair, it's something that obviously I wanted to change. So straight away, sort of with the FA, they put on the Just Play sort of provision that we were able to get funding for and put in place, which sort of secured us in terms of a winter training venue as well. And we knew that we'd sort of secure the funding before we got participants as well, which was obviously really helpful. And that therefore meant we sort of had a pick up and play, and anybody could just turn up and play the game. And therefore from that, over the last 12 months, it's sort of grown. And then this summer, we've been able to put out, we've now got 3 teams going into the new season. We've got sort of like 40 to 50 girls playing each week. And yeah, it's been a lot of sort of have our coaches that are already established with the club create an environment to play. And then if we can create a team and create another session for that team, then you go to parents, right, here's something for you to take on. And then they'll say, yeah, of course, we'll get involved in coaching, because it's the decision whether their girls are playing or not. And again, that sort of broad range of making sure we had the option. We've got 3 girls with the 11s that don't want to play in the league. And that's great. If they don't want to play and they want to be involved in it for the social side, then no problem at all. Just making sure that you can offer a sort of variety of provision so that they can take part in sport in whichever way they want to. In terms of us putting it out, and again, from an equality point of view, I know it's about not being gender blind, but making sure that we're giving the same attention to our girls program as our boys programs. It runs at the ideal slot. It's 6 till 7. It's not at an awkward time slot or at a different venue. They're playing in the same kits, given the same coaches, same quality of coaching. And then obviously our leaflets go out into school or on Facebook and things like that. It's got the boys session on one side and the girls on the other. So if you turn up with their boys that they might have been more likely to bring down originally, and we've had 3 or 4 now go, oh, is this a girls session? And they realise that their daughter that's sat at home for some reason can come down and play at the same time. And I think it means that they can also sort of get all their children active at the same time, and maybe they hadn't thought about it in that sort of respect before as well. So I think it works in that way.
Oh God, that is music to my ears, Sean. All of that, honestly, I'm nodding here furiously. And then Lindsay, over to you. What were those first steps like? What tools did you use, and anything you tapped into you think could help people?
So we didn't have any funding to get started. We were set up just by a group of, there's 5 mums at the beginning. It was very led by our girls. We did ask them, what can we put on that would help you guys come along to a session and feel that you want to come back each week and stay. We found the biggest problem that our girls in particular had was the pressure to join in, the pressure to have to be there every week. So we are under no pressure. They can come and they can sit on their phone for the first couple of weeks if they want to. But we find that the less pressure we put on them, the more they do want to join in, just that they know they can tap in and out of whatever activity is going on. They can have their carer stay with them. Just no pressure and just guided by the girls is what we found helped at the beginning, and still now, actually.
Amazing. So I think knowing about like what funding is available, is there any funding available? And then secondly, I think reaching out to the network that you've got, whether it's parents, guardians, carers, teachers, whatever. And then, as you said, just making it work for the people that you've got in front of you. Like, what do they want to do? Listen to them. Yeah. And really talk and work with them. So I'm gonna skip a little bit to the third question, because I think you've talked a little bit about how you can sustain it. So if we're looking very specifically, and I'm gonna bring Tanya in on this one. So very specific, as teenage girls, Tanya, that you talked about, like what are some of the key things we need to be thinking about when we're reaching out to that group? I think Lindsay brought it to life a little bit there. Is there anything else, any key pointers?
Well, just to say that again, that fantastic kind of insight there from Sean and Lindsay, because everything you're saying there just sounds fantastic, and it sounds like really fantastic practice, and just getting the fundamentals right is just so key, especially providing that kind of equality of access and provision, and showing girls that they need just as much as the boys is really important, because often girls are offered provision, but it can fall into the background and pale in comparison to what boys are offered. So just fantastic to hear that, music to my ears too. I think in terms of when you're reaching out to girls, when we consider what's important in girls' wider lives, it's where do girls spend their time? Where do they like to hang out? Where do they like to congregate with their friends? Where do they, I mean, if you're talking about reaching new girls, so it's, can you advertise and offer things through schools? And although, yes, social media is a really dominant force in girls' lives, and we would ideally want all the girls off their phones, in reality, that's not going to happen, because it's an integral part of this generation's lives. So it's, how can you be really targeted with your messaging and your advertising to girls as well through their social media channels? How can you kind of create really strong word of mouth around the local community, around what's on offer as well, I think is really important. And actually what we found through our research is actually leveraging mum is a really good route into engaging girls, because mum is a girl's #1 role model in the teenage years, and they are heavily influenced by mum. And so if you can also target parents to encourage their daughters into those kinds of activities, because we know obviously parents will facilitate their children coming to activities and pay for things and that kind of thing as well. If we can make mum more aware of what's on offer for her teenage girl and why that's so important and how it will benefit her teenage girl, you've then almost got a two-pronged attack of you going out and speaking to the girls and engaging them, but also mum is also coming in and saying, let's do this and we'll support you and we'll kind of help you through it. So leveraging mum, I think, is a really important aspect of this too.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, as a teenager, I was like, no, my mum's not my role model, but she absolutely was. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And then Sean, just a kind of a specific one for you. Like we think, and I think it is important for young girls to have female coaches around them, to also know that's another way to be involved in sport. But as a kind of a male coach in that environment, like what has that been like? Obviously, we've got lots of guys on here, which is fab. What does that allyship look like? What's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, I think it's been something I've been really aware of, and also aware of it at a sort of board level, as in like making sure that I don't want to be, if I don't fully understand these issues, or making sure that I do understand them to the best that I can, without experiencing them, and making sure that, again, it's supporting all those things that we've sort of discussed earlier on in within this sort of meeting here today. But yeah, I think it's been, if I'm providing good coaching and facilitating, or good coaching and facilitating them playing, that they've seen that they've got my buy-in, and therefore I think that sort of has developed from there. But then still loads of sort of room for us to improve at sort of trying to get sort of female role models involved. I think because we've been sort of so short in the process, reaching out to mums now is something that we've only just really been able to do. And even when I've been asking a couple, they're like, oh, they see everybody else there has been a male coach. So definitely something that we've sort of had to still break down. And we've got the girls involved now, and can we sort of reach out to try and get sort of more female role models, really? But definitely something we're still sort of trying to do at the minute.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I think just having that intent, and as you said, just just being honest. Like, I don't know everything. I can find it out, talk to me, and we can kind of work through it together. I think that's a really good way to think about things. So just a quick reminder before I turn to Lindsay, this is going to be space for you to ask questions soon. So whether you might be prepared to put your hand up, we can unmute you, you can ask your own question, or throw it in the chat. This is your time. These are people who are living it, breathing it, doing it. No question is daft. Get it in the chat. We'll have a really good conversation. So Lindsay, just over to you. Just thinking about what would your advice be for all these people on this call and others, because these people are going to have conversations with other people. This is a big network. What are the priorities? What are the things that people really need to focus on when starting this journey?
So like you're saying, inclusivity, so making the girls feel like they are important, making them feel like they have the people, the volunteers, the coaches, whoever, are people that are like them. So obviously our group's quite specific, so we do have volunteers and coaches that come in and work with the children that have additional needs, be it autism or any other neurodivergencies, and they really look up to them. They think, actually, I can do and I can be, and I feel like that's one of the most important things when working with them.
You've got me nodding again, Lindsay. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Having been involved in the Flyers hockey program, there's some just real specific examples spring to mind of young people who've come through as players, but then have now kind of broadened that out into coaching, into mentorship, into leadership and program development, and it's absolutely saying to them, you can be involved in any way you want, and this is a place for you. You belong here. So yeah, absolutely spot on, Lindsay. Sean, anything for you in terms of priorities and things that people need to be watchful of?
Yeah, I think obviously sort of what provision can you offer? Having those people in place that, again, you're going to get the consistency, you're going to be able to deliver sessions that do allow. So I think Lindsay spoke a little bit earlier on about if they want to be on their phone for sort of 10, 15 minutes at the start of the session, that's okay. Or like with our younger age groups, there's loads of them doing gymnastics, but it's not, if they're doing sport, we can integrate that into our session. If we can feed it in, then great, rather than some will want that structure, some will want that competitive side of it, but there'll be others where it's like if they join in for 10 minutes at the end, or if they play a 1v1 match at the side. And again, that's going to be different for different sports, I understand, but if we can offer them a version of the sport that suits them, then I think that's a really sort of good place to start. And if you've got good people, which I'm guessing most of you are being on a call at this time and taking your time out to do it, then it's a great place to start.
Awesome. And then Tanya, gonna last word from you on this in terms of what are those things that people can prioritize and really focus on at the beginning?
Sure. I think to be honest, I can't add a huge amount to the fantastic things that Reid and Lindsay Sean and Lindsay have already talked about. But I think one thing that I think we often forget is, how do we make our sport truly exciting? Actually, how do we make it a place that's really inspiring and really motivating, whilst also considering the needs of the different girls that we're trying to cater to? And I think for that, we can sometimes look outside of sport and think about what's really inspiring and exciting the girls in their wider lives, actually, and how can we start fusing some of that into our sport sessions and offers? Because, you know, once the girls come, that all important first experience can either make or break it for them. If they don't enjoy the first session, or something turns them away, or they feel bored, or like it's not relevant, it's not meaningful, they won't come back. So it's, how can you create that all important first experience where the girls come are almost kind of blown off their socks, like by how interesting it is and how lovely it is and how engaging it is and how much support they get from everybody, and just thinking about how we can really make sport a more exciting place. That's not to say the sport in itself isn't exciting, of course it is, but it's how do we think about what else girls are looking for and how we can fuse that into our offers, I think creates that really all important first experience, and making it as meaningful and relevant to them as we can.
I love that. Right, well, I'm expecting some Access Sport TikTok viral videos of dance moves that are going on in, I'm far too old for this business, but that are going to be going on around all your clubs and community sessions. So I'm going to now kind of hand over a little bit to Sophie and Sarah, just to help me with the kind of monitor this Q&A. So if anybody wants to put their hand up, now is the time, or put it in the chat, and our Sophie and Sarah can help me manage that. Anything coming through, Sophie and Sarah? Don't be shy, people.
Shall I start?
Yes, go for it.
Crack on.
I'm Mick Murphy, Metro Judo Club. We've had a long history of female participation in the club. The club has been one of the most successful clubs in probably the UK for female achievement. I think we work on the philosophy that there's no boys and girls; they're all players. Everything is. There is nothing that any boys don't get more than the girls. They all get the same. They all get the same opportunities, the same rewards, and that's our philosophy, the way we've gone along. I believe the sport's got its disciplines and that, and I tend not to agree about watering down the disciplines. I mean, we wouldn't have the girls coming and sitting on their phones and then joining in. You either come to do it, or you sit at home. You're here, you do it. Maybe it's an old-fashioned way, but you've come to do a sport, do it, enjoy it. Let's get on the mat. Let's have some fun. And we have lots of. Our percentage is probably 35% girls, 65% boys. We have a lot of females at the club. Our leading coach at the club started when she was 4. She's now the senior coach at the club. So I do see, lots of difficulties, but we've gone along that line, to try and improve, and that costs money. It costs, it's time, it's venues, and it's everything. And we also run an autistic club once a month, and we've got now 40 members, and a very small percentage of that are girls, so it's about 10%. And but it's the same. They come, they enjoy it, and there is great difficulties. And we've got a whole team of coaches taking that, and half of them are female and half of them are male. There never seems to be, I don't know, never seems to be that problem with us. I'm only telling you how I see it. I'm not saying it is that we've never had that. Girls are not getting the same as what the boys are getting. It's always they get the same, and our results prove that.
No, thanks. No, appreciate that. Thank you for starting us off and speaking up. And it's great that you've got female role models in the coaches. You've obviously got lots of girls coming through the door, and I suppose it's that. I suppose in some ways the girls that we're trying to target are the ones that is that 15% to make up the 50-50 that aren't there. And you know, and maybe there are different ways we have to reach those girls, and maybe it does have to look a little bit different. And I suppose the only other thing I was thinking about when you were chatting there was just about the intent of the thought that boys and girls, you know, should be treated the same is absolutely spot on. And I think there's just an extra layer of some of the challenges that girls face potentially through puberty or through mental health because of social media, a little bit more potentially, you know, there's just those extra elements that we might need to be more mindful of when we're reaching out to young girls particularly. Those are just a couple of things that popped into my head. We do have a question here from Louise. So I'd be really interested to know if anyone has accessed specific funding and where they may have accessed the funding. This is a key one. Anybody, Tanya, Sean, Lindsay, jump in.
I think for funding is the question that we get all the time, and there's not an easy answer to this, actually, to be honest with you. Obviously, Sport England have a number of accessible funds that you can access to set up new programs as part of their tackling inequality strategy, and girls and women fall within that because we are an underrepresented group in sport and exercise as well. I've heard some really great stories of clubs securing kind of corporate funding and sponsorship from like local businesses and organizations, for example. Whether that be your local kind of supermarket or whether it's kind of a repair shop, whatever it might be. Just some great, you know, examples of being really proactive and reaching out to the local community and saying, would you like to support us in building this initiative for girls, and actually getting really long-term partnerships out of it as a result, actually. And that's everything from providing actual money, but maybe even just providing donations as well. So donations of kit, donations of period products, for example. And there are a couple of funding resource websites that I can share some links to later on post-webinar, which you can circulate out. But I think Sport England is the general go-to, but I think I'll defer to Sean and Lindsay if there's any others that you've been able to secure as well.
Feels like a bit of a plug at this point, but I've had some great meetings with Adrian from Access Sport, and he's been able to sort of get us in contact with, I think it's the Angus Irvine funding, and created loads of pathways. So we've received that funding last year. And again, they're looking sort of different philanthropy funds as well as sort of the websites that you mentioned, and they're looking to sort of grow it in disadvantaged areas and increase these groups to have less participation. But Access, if you've not had a meeting with sort of whoever sort of your regional individual would be, it might be worth reaching out and sort of discussing options with them as well, because that's been excellent for us over the last year.
Awesome, thanks, Tanya. So yeah, definitely reach out to Sport England and think about the network in your local area businesses, and Access Sport has got so much information. They are literally gurus. They know lots and lots of different ways to tap into that funding. But Lindsay, I think you mentioned that you weren't able to access any funding, and actually you've got it going, you've got it off the ground, and that's what I'm really excited about, because everybody wants money and there's only so much money on the money tree. So just tell me a little bit about what that then looked like for you.
We self-funded at the beginning. We just was buying craft things, and then my brother's a football coach, so I got him to come down and do it for free. And like Access Sport have funded some coaches to come in, or we've had a yoga lady come in and things. So that's really helped, because otherwise we couldn't fund that on our own. And at the moment we're still just run off of donations, really. So we're just trying our best, yeah.
Amazing. But you know, I think that's also, you know, real world. In the beginning, when you're just trying to get it started, you are relying on people like you, people just with the love and the passion, and you've just got a couple of people who you can just pull in and get together and just get things rolling. And you know, I just hope that in and of itself will just draw people in, and other people will be prepared to offer, you know, whether it is money or whether it is other things like period products or other things, kit, you know, things like that will just really help make these sessions get going. There are a couple of links being thrown into the chat here, one from Tom from Access Sport, another one from Tanya going into the chat now, so definitely click on those. Anybody else, last few minutes before we wrap up, anybody else want to unmute themselves and ask a question?
Just wondering, is your club in London? I mean, the lady who's
Lindsay.
down to the football.
Yeah, we're in London. We're based in Bexley, but we have people.
Oh, right, yeah. So we're based in Greenwich, so we're not far away. But have you applied to Jack Petchy?
We haven't actually. No, I'll write that down.
They are fantastic. I mean, we get money off them every year, regular, for the achievement awards. They're just calling out for people to join them. They always give me the impression they're trying to give money away. They do so much, and Jack Petchy and London Youth, join London Youth as well. I don't know what your youth service is like. Greenwich is pretty good, but we're part of that as well. But I can definitely recommend Jack Petchy. I think
you.
they're just
I'm going to contact them today.
so,
I think.
so glad to have you. I mean, yeah, we
Awesome.
for years we didn't. I just thought it was. I thought it was too good to be true. When we joined, I thought, God, all those years are wasted.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Mick.
Yeah.
And that's also the power of this network and the events that are going to be moving forward, and you become your own community. And just, you know, that today, Lindsay, it's like I said, she's going to be, after this, I'm going to be straight on checking that out. And that is really the power of it, because it is, I think Tanya put in the chat, it is a bit of a postcode lottery, and it does kind of depend where you live and what the council's doing there and how interested they are. So use each other. You really tap into each other's network and knowledge and what you know. I have got, so Lou, not a question. Oh, I love a challenge. Oftentimes colder months, it's harder to retain girls in our sessions. Absolutely, could not agree with you more. Hockey in a skirt in the winter is not the one. Any thoughts, any tips, panel?
We do some indoor sports sessions. We try and keep them indoors as much as possible because they don't want to be outside running around. They don't want to.
One of the other things I think I would consider, particularly in the winter months, is weather can have a really big impact on all of us in terms of not being able to go outside and wanting to kind of be in the warm. So indoor sports, absolutely. But safety is also a really big issue in the winter months for girls. So being able to get to and from your sport offer at an accessible time that feels safe, that's not too dark. Can you organise the groups of girls to go together, for example? Those kind of things. So what are the practical kind of tips and hints you can give the girls to be able to get there really safely and go home safely? And as Sean pointed to earlier, making sure that you don't have the graveyard shift in an indoor sports hall or on a pitch, whatever it might be, because that is really going to make sure that the girls don't turn up if they have to be there at 9-10 o'clock at night, and don't have maybe the support of being able to be transported there by parents and things like that. So think about those kind of small things that you can do, I think, to take safety into consideration. And something that we all did learn quite a lot off the back of COVID was actually how you can also provide virtual offers during those winter months, or a hybrid of some virtual and kind of face-to-face. So if you absolutely know that the girls cannot get there for some reason, what's to stop you holding a 1-hour virtual meetup with all the girls and doing something physically together online, or even just meeting and socializing together online to keep them engaged and keep them coming along and being a part of the group as well. So maybe thinking about some more hybrid approaches as well in the winter can help too.
Awesome. Great tip. And I think it's better now, but I think also just letting them wear what they want. And, if that means thousands of layers, get them on. You just want them there, whatever they're wearing. I think this one's a really good one. So keywords that you've used, whether it's on Facebook groups or on flyers or things that you talked about before going into schools, what are some of the keywords that you've helped entice those girls into your sessions?
I think for us, it's just been like, just turn up and play. So like that's sort of like, there's no obligation. Like if you want to turn up for it, and we also make our first week free. And again, I think it just adds into the fact that you can try it at sort of no cost. And therefore, if you don't like it, then at least you've been able to give it a go. So yeah, that idea about turning up and play. And then again, if you then want to move into those more competitive sessions, then obviously we can talk about that to go on, or we can just stay playing, sort of no strings attached, just for enjoyment sessions instead.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Lindsay?
no pressure, no expectations, and no sign up. Just turn up and join in. That's the same.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, make it as easy as possible. Could not agree more. I did have a hand up. I think, was it from Darnell? Do you want to unmute yourself, Darnell?
Hi, sorry, yeah, it was just adding on to what you said about the hybrid offer. Some of the stuff I've done in general working with young people, especially focusing on, I guess, their COVID babies to a certain degree as well. So a lot of young people don't actually know how to socialize. So I think what we're all seeing currently is you've got a batch of young people who you'll see physically, and they obviously find it hard to actually communicate with people and interact with people, and COVID has a big thing to do with that. But I kind of like the idea of, you know, giving them an element of doing things online. It's like that happy medium, because for some young people, especially if we think about women and girls, it's their safe space, because not that they can hide, but similar to what you just said about clothing, like wear what you want. It's like you don't have to have your screens on. I don't have mine on because I'm really sick. But the point is that it's a layer that they can be engaged, but they don't have to physically be engaged. So I didn't really think about having, at times, especially in those colder months, like, I don't know, in my mind, I'm thinking of like check-in sessions, or just like shorter moments of just looking at, I don't know, it could be a topic or just a random check-in, but the point is they still have that consistency, because I think, again, working with young people, and I have done for such a long time, they lack consistency in their life, beyond school / education. So outside of, you know, the 9 till 3, they don't really have much consistency. So actually, if they do entrust any of us in regards to sports, if for whatever that reason that familiarity has to stop, whether it's weather, whether it's funding, if there is a way that we can keep checking in with them, actually that sustains a positive relationship with sports and exercise, which is, again, with the stats that we've obviously been presented today, that's a big thing. And yeah, so it's just a lot of food for thought that you guys have made me think about, and I really appreciate this call. It was actually really good. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Darnell. So it's 2 o'clock. I'm trying to keep us to time. I've run over. I'm going to be sacked. So what next? So the next thing is, like, use this support network, as I said, use the people and the knowledge to access sport, take action. So whether that is getting in touch with Access Sport, whether that is getting started, you know, getting some people together who have got the passion, who want to get a female inclusive training session going and a club going and get some coaches involved, you know, start that. There's going to be some, so if you scan that QR code that's coming on up on your screen now, there's going to be a couple more events coming up on the 10th and 12th of October, specifically around that female inclusion training. So scan that QR code, so you'll be kind of send you off to the link on there. Definitely visit the website, get in touch through social media, and really start to use this network. We will try and hang around for a little bit longer. So if you have got a bit of time, if you can stay on, brilliant. We can maybe get some of your questions answered. If not, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you to Tanya, thank you to Sarah and Sophie and Lindsay and Sean. It's been a phenomenal hour. I wish we could have had longer. But it starts now. So let's all of us take action. Let's move this forward, because we've been talking about particularly teenage girls not playing sport for a long time, and it's time we move this forward. So I wish you all the very best of luck. I'm right there with you in it, and thank you very much.